get the privilege of introducing our guest speaker. Man, there's a lot of male energy in the room today. I can see there. A lot of men here smiling. They had a good time. Our guest speaker was one of my teachers in the spiritual direction program, and it's so fun because we've been only virtual in this program, so, I got to see this much of him, and I didn't know he was so tall. It was great to see him in person. So Dr. Rick Diamond is a teacher, facilitator, writer, artist, minister. What else do you do? Troublemaker. And I've heard fabulous and amazing and fantastic and lots of other adjectives from the past couple of days. So I'm so pleased and thrilled to introduce Dr. Rick Diamond. Come on up.
Thank you, friend. I'm so excited to be here. Sue is amazing in the spiritual direction program, and we just hit it off from the very beginning. And then when she emailed some months ago and said, would it be okay if my husband contacted you about leading a men's retreat for our spiritual community in March? I think I just replied in all caps, yes! And Kevin, you and your team did an amazing job of facilitating and leading this retreat. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to see so many faces of the men that I got to hang out with. My brother and dear friend Steve Finnick and I had the joy of, you can't talk about the things that happened at the men's retreat. The first rule of men's retreat is you don't talk about men's retreat. But there's pictures of how we were, especially Steve and David over here, transformed the space so that we could feel it differently and enter our space differently. And so it was really wonderful to be here, and thank you for that. Put your whole, do you know the song, The Hokey Pokey? Put your whole self in, take your whole self out, put your whole self in, and you. That's it, and that's what it's all about. When I think about the spiritual journey that is meaningful, I think about how so much of the messaging that we receive and that I've received and maybe you've received is about being bad. Was anybody ever told, don't do this or you'll be bad? Right? What an insanely horrible thing to say to another human being, especially to a child, right? Don't be bad. Don't be bad. Eddie Izzard, the actor and comedian, who says, when you say to a dog, bad dog, surely the dog is thinking, what could I have done to be bad? How bad a dog do I have to be a bad dog? I mean, I ate an extra biscuit. How does that make me a bad dog? Don't you think our souls feel the same way? What do you mean, bad? What does that even mean? I grew up in Texas, and my mother grew up in Central Texas, and she was the child of farmers and bricklayers and simple people. And her mother, Inez, who talked like this, and I mentioned to the men that she smoked Camels unfiltered, and I never had a cake. Granny was not a cake baker. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I got to be older and found out that other kids' grandmothers baked them cakes, I was like, what does this even mean? My grandmother, Inez, when my sister and I would get there, kids, don't put those bags down. Put them back in the bag. That's not your room. Oh, can I say damn it? Oh, damn it. Oh, damn it. Like that was our greeting to her home. It's very, don't touch that. Don't touch that. So my messaging from my family of origin was that there is any number of things which if I do them, I am bad. One more time. Anybody know what this felt like if it's not your family of origin, it's in our culture, right? You smell bad, you don't look right, you're too big, you're too little, you're too whatever. And we grow up with these messages that tell us this is what is good and this is what is bad. And I think what happens over time is that we seal parts of ourselves off. Do you know what I mean? And we hide, repress, and deny, you know that language, parts of ourselves, because somehow they're going to be bad. And then have you ever had the experience, surely you have, where you found out that something that you thought was a rule was just something somebody made up? For instance, Granny taught me when I was young how to play poker for money. And when she would shuffle the cards, if she was dealing, she would insist on cutting the cards herself. Now, you know that's cheating, right? Like the dealer is supposed to deal the cards and then hand the cards to another person to cut the cards. And she would always shuffle, and then she would take them and she would do this with the cards. And I thought that's what you had to do, like that was magic, like all poker players did this. And then she would cut the cards by taking 2 off the top and putting them in the middle, and she would say, "Rick, cut them thin to win." In college, when I played poker with other people who just handed the deck of cards to someone else and they cut the cards, I just watched in horror. That's not how you cut the cards. It turns out that was just Granny. So I'd like to suggest to you that if you ever have a moment where you're wondering whether something is true or not, just ask yourself, is that just Granny? Right? Do you have that? Wait a minute. Where did that come from? Is that from my deep divine knowing? Is that from in here? Is that from my deepest capital S self? Or is that somebody just made up and they did that out of their own brokenness and then that got transmitted and transferred to me? Richard Rohr says, any of our pain that is not transformed will be transmitted, right? And so there's a lot of stuff on us that doesn't belong to us. One of the stories that I love in the Christian scriptures is about Jesus traveling through a town, and there is a woman who has been bleeding. She has a medical issue that it says she's had for 12 years. And in those scriptures, 12 means that something is coming to a fullness. That's a symbol. And the story says that she had given all of her money to doctors and had not gotten better. Does anybody know that feeling? You've gone from one thing to another thing and another thing and another thing. One of the things I love about what Unity is about is that it says, look, the answer's not out there, and it's not out there, and it's not in the big fancy book, and it's not this expert and that expert, and we keep doing this. And the answer is within. Like, this is our divine knowing. This is who we were created to be. And this woman, the story says, hears that Jesus is coming to town. In that culture, the purity culture that evolved over time, the purity code said that if there are things about you that you do or that are about how you live, you become, I used the term bad earlier. Now let's use a different word that's in the scriptures, impure. That you are impure. And if you're impure, given the holiness code of the time, then you have to be separate. Have you heard this, right? You've been bad. Go to your room. And so this woman, because she has this ongoing bleeding issue, given the understanding of the time about illness, physical illness, she has been separate for 12 years. Which means that she's been out of her community, which means that people in her family and her community were forbidden to touch her. So she has not been touched for 12 years. And if you have ever been in a season when you were not pure or bad or impure or not good enough or not pretty enough or not whatever ridiculous thing enough, then you know what it's like to be alone, outcast, separate. After a while, it doesn't seem like what we do or what we're told makes us impure or bad, parts of ourselves, what happens over time is that, do you know this word? I'm going to say it, and I'm saying it on purpose so that we can put it out and look at it clearly, that you're a sinner. Did anybody ever hear that? That not only that you are committing sins, but because you are committing sins, you are a sinner, in which case there is a part of us that is just broken off and lost. And that's what this woman in this story is experiencing. She is alone and lost because of this message that has been repeatedly driven into her and her whole culture, that she is unworthy, that she is untouchable, that she is unlovable. So when she decides to go and see Jesus as he's passing through this town, bearing this beautiful Christ nature, Buddha nature, light, love, right? She says, I want that. But she's not allowed to be around people. One of the scholars who has looked at this says that what she would have to do if she wants to touch Jesus is to say to everybody, I'm impure, I'm impure, I'm impure, and they might make room for her to pass through the crowd without touching anyone. Because if she touches them, what are they? Impure. She's infectious, right? She's bad. So, I don't know if this will mess up the thing. She crawls through the crowd, hiding. She's so desperate to get this beautiful divine energy that Jesus is embodying that she's willing to risk crawling through this crowd. I love this moment when she thinks, if I just touch the hem of his cloak, if I just touch his clothes, I don't even have to get him to pay any attention to me, then I will be healed. So she touches his clothes, and I love this idea that Jesus goes, somebody touched me. Who touched me? Who touched me? Because there are people all around. So his guys, this is not a knock on men, maybe a little, all get into their logical mode and say, what do you mean, who touched you? There are 900 people here. Everybody's touching you. Do you need we've got a PowerPoint about that, Jesus, if you want us to explain that to you, and we have a physicist here who can talk about. And Jesus just says, no. I felt power flow through me. Somebody accessed this thing that I've been entrusted with sharing with the world. And he looks around, and this woman's like, So he does what I believe Spirit does with us all the time and is always wanting for us. He says, I need to hear your story. Stand up. Tell me your story. Can you just take a breath into that for a minute? That the divine love, Spirit, not only theoretically, but in here and in the in here in all of these people, says, stand up and tell me what happened. Stand up and tell me your story. Get off of this story that you have about yourself that you're not worthy. There is a way of understanding this, which is that if she touched Jesus, now Jesus is impure. Do you think he cares? And so he touches her and has her stand up, and she tells him her story. And he says, daughter, you're not a nobody, and you are not bad, and you are not impure, and I don't want you separate anymore. Daughter, child, beloved. And then he says, and now because I'm the miracle worker, or I'm the special one, or I'm the sage on the stage, or I'm the whatever, because you believed in me, now you get the goodie. He says, your faith, your willingness to trust, your willingness to leap, your willingness to open yourself made you well. Your faith made you well. He doesn't say your faith in me or your faith in her faith in the doctors wasn't working. He just says your willingness to take this leap, to risk, to be even among people crawling, you at least were willing to step out in faith, some faith, any faith, has made you well because she knows that she's healed in her body. Amen? Right? Yes, yes, yes. But then he says, go in peace. That's not about her body. Yeah, that's in here. But, right, the first thing was your body's better. The second thing is go in peace because your soul is better. But did you catch the third thing? Daughter, your illness of being separate and bad, that there's a part of you that you have to hide, that there's a part of your selfhood that is not loved, that there is a part of who you are, or maybe all of who you are, that you have been told is bad, not worthy, not lovable. He just says, that's out. Scratch. It's not the truth, daughter. You are beloved as you are. Now, I don't know if they did the hokey pokey. But wasn't he telling her, your whole self? Your whole self. Isn't Spirit telling you that story you heard about the parts of yourself that are bad or unacceptable? That story that you heard is just a story. Get up off the floor. Stand up, beloved one. You are beautiful and worthy as you are. Go in peace. Continue to heal. And by the way, anybody who tells you you are not who you were created to be, they're wrong. They're wrong. And maybe they're just mistaken. Maybe they're just mistaken, in which case they're probably not somebody I need to take my cues from or understand my sense of selfhood from. Is that so? Right? Right? So, off our knees, standing up, and welcomed exactly as we are. That's what Spirit wants for me, and that's what Spirit wants for you. Beloved, daughter, son, sisters, brothers, and others. I'm glad to be among you, beautiful people with your whole selves. Can I say a prayer for us for a second? So I want you to keep your eyes open for this prayer. And I want you, just before we say it, to look around at all of these whole selves. These beautiful, beautiful creations. These beautiful things that the divine has created and that we are all participating in this eternal now. My prayer is simply, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.